spring break for me last week, so I didn't get to see everything that I wanted to. Also didn't bring my notes with me, so even though I did get to see this, kind of just going off the top of my head, luckily I don't think this is the most complicated thing, so I'm just going to try and give you kind of a quick one here, though obviously I have a tendency to ramble on, so I'll try and keep it tight. Obviously, Pacific Rim Uprising is the sequel to Pacific Rim. This time, Guillermo del Toro stepped out of the directorial role and is just a producer on this one. This one's directed by Stephen S. DeKnight. Don't really know who he is. Directed a few TV shows, mostly a producer, I think, generally. Quick plot, John Boyega, son of Idris Elba from the first one, and he is eventually brought into the Jaeger program to teach the next crop of Jaeger pilots, these young 12, 13, 14-year-old kids, and eventually the kaiju who thought they defeated come back and they have to put them away for good. And honestly, coming into this one, you can't expect too much because the first one was already lacking in certain areas. Visually, it was done well and the action was really cool, and for something that could have been dumb, it kept it impactful enough where it actually felt like something was happening, unlike in especially the later Transformers films where it's just two giant things kind of smacking each other around and it's, what is happening? But none of the characters in the first one are particularly memorable. The plot was pretty basic, and it's the same thing here, except kind of everything's just taken down a notch or two. John Boyega kind of provided some charisma to his character, and I'll probably remember him as John Boyega at least, but not necessarily going to remember the character at all. They had the kids, and I barely knew who any of them were. I couldn't hardly keep them separated at all. At the end, they were brought into battle, which I was like, I'm bringing kids into battle? That's kind of yikes. But I wasn't invested in what happened to them because I don't know who any of these people are. John Boyega has a friend who, for the beginning of the movie, I thought was just a recast of the main character from the first one. He was just generic military dude. Just paper-thin characters, overall completely forgettable, but not really surprising. There were a few good jokes, whatever, and I'm not going to act like I'm a genius writer or anything, but there was just one scene when John Boyega and this girl he meets in the beginning first come into the Jaeger platform where everything's set up. The girl, that's the Jaeger with the chain thing. That's the Jaeger. Oh, it takes 3 pilots. This one fights with a sword, and you gotta do this, and you got great. Okay, wow, what a, I guess, just easy way to do that. But you know, it would have been really fun to see them do that first, rather than having to wait to the last 30 minutes to actually see all of those Jaegers really in action. The action itself was easily the best part of the film, which is good because that's what you go to see this movie for. But it was noticeably less fun than the first one. Through the first parts of the film, it's really just kind of Jaeger on Jaeger fights. We're still pretty interesting, but not really what I paid to see. There's not really a whole lot of innovation as far as the weapons go and the uses of them. It's kind of just the same things that we saw in the first one, but less visually intriguing, and there's just kind of not as much weight to stuff, and it's just kind of falling towards that Transformer. They're just two metal CGI things. Again, towards the end of the film, you finally do get the kaiju back. You do get to see briefly kaiju versus Jaeger, and there's 3 huge kaiju and it's great, and then all of a sudden there's one just ginormous one, which was cool, but honestly I thought the designs of the 3 were a lot cooler than the 1, and then that fight with that one just fell completely flat for me. I wasn't invested because the plot was uninteresting, and I wasn't invested in any of the characters of the world in this film because it was so underdeveloped that I didn't really care what happened. No urgency, and then the fight itself, I felt like I barely got to see the Jaegers actually do anything, which is what I wanted to see. Though, when I did get to see the Jaegers for the first part of that ending fight, and when they were attacking some other rogue Jaegers in the beginning, it was interesting enough that as someone who really, I don't have that high expectations for action doesn't have to do a whole lot for me to enjoy it. I kind of got through the film. If you have like any sort of baseline that action needs to reach for you to enjoy it, just pass this over completely. If you're like me and you'll take an action film because it's whatever, I feel like this one's like the first Michael Bay Transformers, which people forget. Not awful. It was a watchable film, and it was enjoyable for what it was, if, you know, maybe not the most memorable thing. That's what this is. Really, objectively, it's pretty bad, but if you like action films, yeah, maybe check it out.